Hello there and welcome. My name is Jimmy Wikman, and in this video we're going to take a look at the old Atlas products, goals and projects. And we're going to see how they work and give some tips and tricks on how to use them. So for those of you who don't remember Atlas, or maybe you never was there when Atlas was announced, it was a one of those blueprint projects that they were testing out, and it turned out that they cannibalized it and they created now the new home section for it. And then we had the goals and projects. And over the years, goals has been probably the one that have seen most development, because goals is now not just a standalone product within the Atlassian platform. It's also tightly integrated with Focus, for example. So in today's video, we are not going to look at goals in Focus. We are going to look at the standalone version that you get for free in your platform. And what I want to show you is, on one hand, what is it? Because it's still a little bit underutilized. And I also want to show you the difference between projects and goals. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight on how people are using it, or how I'm using it, for example, in the wrong way, but it's actually helping me a lot in my work. So enough chit chat. Let's jump into the tool and show you goals first. So here we are now in goals, and if you don't know how to find goals, you will actually go to the four dots here, and under the products here you will find goals and projects. So you can actually get them directly from the quick menu here, from the site switcher. And when you go to goals, this will be where you land, and this will be the entry point, so to speak. So this will be the overview of all the goals that are added to your instance. So in my case, I don't have a lot because I'm using it mostly for demo purposes here on my instance. But let's take a look at what you see now on the view. So you have on the left side here, you have the navigation. And this is the main area, of course, where you have the listing, the information. And in standard Atlassian manner, you have the configurations up here in the goal settings. So let's start with the goal settings first. So settings for goals are very limited. You don't have a lot of settings to actually have for it. So one is types, and they recently introduced goal types here. So this is what you're seeing here. So by default, you would have a goal, and you will have a success measure that will tell you how are you becoming successful with this goal. And you can create new ones. So if you create type here, you can actually name them, have a description, and then you add a success measure. How do you measure success for this one? So here you have, for example, an OKR, an objective and key result. And so if you added this one, you will see that this is how it's been defined. So you have an objective, which is the main object, and then you have key results will be tied to that object. So very common setup. This one is not so common though. So this is actually one of my setups for it, and I will explain this one a little bit later in the video. So what I've done is basically set up a project here, and I have deliverables as the success measures. So we're going to talk about that one a little bit later in the video when we go into projects. But here you can create any type of goals that you want, and you can use them. So when you are on the create goal here, these will actually show up here as kind of the object type of what kind of goal do you want to create here. In here, you also have fields. If you want to use different fields that you can actually add here to the goal sidebar, and you can add a field, and these are not custom fields. So these are fields that exist only within goals. So you have a limited number. So you have number, text, user, and select. These are the only types that you have available for you. And you can add them as many as you want, what makes sense for your goals. And I will show you in a goal where they actually end up. We can actually do one example. Let's make that a text field then. An example field. There we go. Now I have one field that I can now use in my goals. And the third thing that you can set is for when you are updating your goal, when you're scoring your goal, how are we progressing? By default, it will be what is referred to as a traffic light. Basically, you have green, yellow, and red. And so it'll tell you then, is this one on track? Is it at risk or is it off track? So you can actually indicate that one. So this is a strong visual aid for you when you're working with goals to see how we're progressing. Is there anywhere I need to get involved here? But you can also turn on the status and score, which means that you have a little number connected to it. And this one ranges from 0.0, which means that it's completely dead, up to 1.0, which means that this is 100% on track. So this is common when you're using OKRs, when you're using that one, but it works for any purposes. And I will show you how this one shows up. So these are the goal settings that you can set now. Now on this side, you only have 4 navigation nodes here. So the goal directory, like I said, this is where you end up. You have the following, which is basically a filter and where you can actually have anything that you're following. So it's the same thing as you are here actually. And if you click on the following, it will actually give you the same view. So the only difference is that you have a specific search bar here and you have this one predefined. Than that, it's pretty similar to actually do this. You have the search goals, you have the same thing here. So this is just a quick way of actually filtering for you. So it's a static filter basically. Then you have status updates, and this is everything that you are following here now will actually show up here. And you can also, this one is now based per month here, so you can cycle through them. And on the status updates, you also have something called catch up. So if you click on this one, you will cycle through the updates that you haven't seen or that are in the current period. So I can now read them one by one. And when I go to the end, you will get this confetti and say, good work, Jimmy, you caught up with everything. But this is a good way to keep in track also. And also historically, now I don't have much because this is just for demo purposes. But you will also see on the sidebar here, you'll see which goals is now included here. So if there's something you don't see here, then it actually is not going to show up here. And you can also see, maybe I should move myself around a little bit so you can see more clearly here. Let me move over to this side. You can also see that we have new goals here, for example, if something was added during this period in June, or also if something was completed, they will now be listed here on that side as well. Now let me move myself back. I like to be on the right side of things. There you go. And then you have the archive tab. So the archive tab is basically just showing things that have been completed that you have archived. And it's pretty much the same as the goal directory. You have the same type of filtering here. You have the same type of sorting. So it's just to show you what has been archived. And there is no way, as they've added it, no, you can restore it from this perspective. But you cannot delete anything. I don't know if there is any way to actually delete anything. Not that I have found anyway. Maybe you can just archive things. Now let's take a look at the directory again here. So like I said, we had the filtering here. These are quick filters that you basically have. And these are static ones that you actually added here. You can also, right now we are looking this one as a list view. And we can also have this one as a timeline. So if you have start date and end date, which you should have, then it will also show up on a timeline here. So you can actually see when is something happening. You can hover over, and then you will also see that they vaguely have the color of their traffic light here. So the status that they have. So you see this one is green, this one is yellow. And this one you can also filter. And you can add filter here, so you can even have it on more metrics here, and you can create a new view for it. You can also sort by following, or you can sort by other things. And by default, you have the listing sort by following. You can also change the columns here, and I see I'm still in the way. Well, let me move over to this side. There's less things here. So columns, you can add and remove columns from the view as you see fit, also based on what is available for you. And if you go to the three dots here, you can copy this link for this view, and you can export it, and you can also toggle on wrap text here. This is what the goal directory looks like. And like I showed you, you can create a goal here, and it's very simple. Oh, sorry, did I click on export? You can just provide a name for the goal, you can set a type, and you can set the target date, and you can have it on exact day, you can have it a month or even quarter. And then you set an owner for this one, so you know which person actually owns this goal. And if you have created a goal here now, so let's take project X here, for example. This is the view that you have now for every goal. So you will have, by default, it will go into updates and ask you now to post an update here. But let's start from the beginning here, start with the overview here. So the overview will have two sections here. So you will have the description, which will describe your goal. You will have the deliverable section. In this case, it depends on what kind of goal you have, what kind of trackable items you have here. In this case, we have a project, so then it will be the deliverables that will be here. And if we create another, maybe we have example here. Is this a goal, perhaps? Yeah, so then you actually have success measures. That is the other type then, and I can now create a new success measure. And you see the icon here means that you now have a target for it. But let's go back to our project X here. So in the view here, we had the overview. This one will now show the deliverables. And if I go into each of them, because each of these act as a sub-goal in itself. So if I go into something that we track, you will see that it looks very similar or even identical as the goal itself. So they are basically sub-goals that you set. The updates, when you post updates, and remember this is built as a broadcasting tool to begin with. So when you are writing updates, it's not that you are doing it just for yourself. It will actually broadcast based on what you have here on the right side here. So followers here, for example, these are basically watchers if you're thinking about Jira. So when you post an update, they will actually get notified and get an email for it. So anyone who wants can actually join here as long as you give them permission to. And while we are on this side here, you can also see that we have parent goal and sub goals here. So these are parent goal is obviously parent, and you would think that sub goals would then fetch the deliverables here, but that is not how it works. So sub goals are actually children, direct children. These are not children, they are part of this goal. So you can add a sub goal that is not a deliverable, for example, or a trackable item. And you will have the type, and you cannot change that once you have created it. And then you have teams, which will allow you to connect a team. And you can have tags, and you can have, this is now our custom field that we created. So this is where they will actually show up. And if I want, I can now enter a text here because we selected a text field for this. And if you are connecting any form of progress, for example, we will make one so we can see this one. If you have any metrics connected to it, they will also show up here on the top. So when you are doing an update here, you can first change this one, which is what you usually do. And you can see the numbers here. So you have 3, I think. Yeah, 3 are red. And you have up to 6 here then. So 3 are actually in yellow. And then you have 4 green ones that tells you a little bit of the progress. And if you want, you can change the target date when you're doing the update. And then you can type something in here. And as you can see, you have access to a few additional things here, like images, emojis, links, and even a field for more detail, because this is limited to 280 characters. And if you add more detail, then you can have even more information added here. And for those of you who often write in the same way, you can use a template for it. So you can just click, for example, delivery update, and then it would be pre-filled for you. And then you will also be able to update deliverables here that are the trackable items in the update as well. So if we all is well now, and then we can change this one then to be green of 0.9. We can still keep this one. And if I post this one, then now it will update. Oh, sorry. Now you will have an update here, so you can actually see that it has been created. And anyone who is watching this one now will get a notification. They can now comment, for example, if they want. They can add a little bit of emoji saying good work. And I can also share this one now, so you can actually see where will this one actually show up. So that's how updates work. And you will get, I'm not going to say pestered, but I did anyway. You will get notified. Goals will ask you to update this one on a regular cadence, because it thinks that you should update this every week, which is not a bad idea, but not everyone have the capacity to do updates for everything every week. But the idea is every Friday you will do an update and it will be sent out, and then every Monday people will read it and they will continue with that cycle. I'll move myself over here again, since we will be working more on the left side here. That's the overview and the updates. And then we have Jira. So in Jira, what you can do here now is you can connect your goals in the projects, and they will now be tied to this goal. So everything that you connect will actually show up on the Jira tab. Under projects, you can connect now a project, the other type that we're going to talk about as well. And what that will do then is will give you connector like this, but it will also give you that one on the project side. So I can actually see this one on the project side, and you will only see a limited number when you do this update. But if you go directly to the project here, and then you will actually see that it is connected on this side instead. We will go into the differences between projects and goals when we get to projects there. But it will create a connection now, so we can actually see the project on the goal side and the goals on the project side. Learnings is a way to add some information, some learnings. And while the idea is good, the implementation is not so great, because these things are tied to the goal. So when the goal is done, and these things will die, and there is no way to actually keep them. And I'm not really sure how they work when it comes to teamwork graph and stuff like that. But the idea here is basically a notebook, I would assume. So you put some notes in here, and then you move them over to a more permanent way to actually keep the learnings here. But this is very, very simple. Basically a note, and you're saying learning stuff. And it will then be kept here, and you can now work with this one or collapse it. But it's like you see, it's only a note. We don't have any way to actually comment or anything like that. So we cannot actually continue this learning in some way. We can only add them as small notes. Risks are similar. So if you look at, they are also notes. So for anyone who is actually working with risk management, this is not a very good tool. This does not have the functionality that you need to actually do risk management. And this is more of, if you come up with something and you think that you should scribble it down somewhere, you can do that here. I'm hoping that this one will be removed and replaced with a proper risk management tool. But then the question is if it should be on the goals part or if it should be on the project part, and how the connections there should be. But for now, you can basically add a little risk here. You have no, you cannot tell the impact and severity. You have no prioritization of it. You have no mitigations, nothing like that. It's just a note. And the final thing is decision state, which is exactly the same. It's just a note. And again, if you want to have decisions, then there's permanency for decisions. They need to be saved long term, and we don't have that here. So this is, if you think of how things are in Jira Product Discovery, it's more of a something that we note down. If you think about it as a goal manager's notebook, for example, it's not really meant in this setup, at least, to be used in a more permanent way. This is just a scribble, and you should put this one somewhere else later on. Now, I talked about this one, and I did not show you anything. So let me fix that one so you actually understand what I was talking about. So if we create a new one, so example 2, and I select this one, let's do it a goal, and I would like to have this one in December, for example, and I'm the owner. So this is I need to add some success measures for this one here. So right now we have a progress bar here that is actually based on success measures or sub-goals. So if I create a sub-goal for this one, then it will actually connect this one. So if this one is a sub-goal for this one, then it will actually measure. So if I do any progress on this one, update this one, then it will actually move on the other side as well. So it is not as good. You can see here now it actually connected them as parent here. So this is based on deliverables. I have 3 deliverables here, which are these things here. So as they progress now, this measurement will actually count towards that one. But it's very rudimentary, and it is not very good or very detailed. It's just an indicator for the progress here. So it's not like you have in Jira where you log time. This is more what do you actually set on the trackable items here. So if I do a trackable item here, so let's do post go live support here, for example. This is now a metrics that you have here, or a success measurement. This is in the form of deliverable. And as you can see, I have a little bit difference here. So I still have the description. And in this case, I just have one big metric here. And this one will show you now, as I add more updates and I change the values here now for the progress that I have up here, this one will now paint this one out. So I can actually see over time how I'm progressing and working with this one. And if you are doing it consistently, this will be a nice graph, show you the steady progress. And if you are not doing it in regular cadence, then you will have gaps here and it will jump up and down and will look a little bit funny. But this is the difference here now, and you also have comments directly on this specific metric, so we can actually have communication here. And you also have a history of what has actually happened here. And the updates here are the same. So if I do an update here, for example, say we are on track, let's use a template for it. This one is all I need to do. And in this case, I have a progress here that I have actually added. So let me put that at 76%, just to be odd. Let's see, short summary. There we go. Now you'll see that this bar will actually jump up. And if I go to the product X here, you will also see that this one jumps up. So they are all connected. And I can already hear you now, but how did I get this value? How did I get this percentage here? What was different here? How do I create these items here? So let's create one more. So if I go here and I have a deliverable, and if I click on the plus sign here, I can now add a new deliverable. So 4, I can select a date and the owner. So far it is exactly the same as if you add a goal. But this one, add a metric, this is where it becomes a little bit interesting, because this is where you now can add measurement to a trackable item. So in this case, deliverable. If I do this, I can now select, I can create a new one. So I can select by all of this. So you can have it in currency here, for example, or percentage or number. Or I can use one that I have already created. So I've created a few. So active users, progress, for example. In this case, I want to have progress bar. I can add that one, and I can say it should start with what value, so 0. And it should go to what value, 100, makes sense. And then it will be added now to my deliverable in this case. And I can now click on create. And now I will have a new box here that will actually show up. And for some reason it was 76. I can actually change this one. Oh, it had 0 as a starting value. Okay, interesting. Perhaps that's a bug, perhaps. I can do an update and I can change this to 0 if I want. Oops. There you go. Now I'm down to 0 again. So that's the difference when you're adding metrics. So if you are on the goal itself, it will just count down the deliverables that you have connected to it, or the trackable items that you have here. And it will just, as those progress, it will actually count down here. But when you are on one of the trackable items here, you can actually add now a measurement here. So you can actually add numbers here, for example. And you can see now I went this and then straight down, so I'm at 0 here. If I do another update here, and I can now set this one in red, and I can say now 40% perhaps. There you go. And now you will see now on my overview, this one will now change also. In this case, it actually didn't change. Let's see if I need to. Oh, it went there. Off track, 40%. But every deliverable or all trackable items here have the same tabs here basically as the project. So when you go into one, you will see that you have the updates. You also have connected to Jira, and you have connected to products, learnings, risks, and decisions. They are all the same. And on the sidebar here, you will have the same thing, but you will have now contributes to project. So you can actually tell which project is this one contributing to. Themes, tags, example, and start date. So it's almost identical to what you have here. So you don't have parent or sub goals, for example. So this is the difference that you had, but instead you have connected to project. Okay, so that was goals. I hope that was a lot of jumping back and forth, I felt, but I hope it made a bit of sense at least. So what is the difference now then between goals and projects? Well, let's jump over to projects and I will show you. So if we go to projects, you will see that this sidebar here now looks pretty much identical. You will also see that we have the same view here. Sorry, maybe I should not jump too far. You have the create projects. And if you go to project settings, the only thing that you have here, you have no categories here, for example. You do not have the values that you can set here. You only have fields that you can set on the sidebar. And if we go into a product, for example, if I go into the product X here, for example, these tabs are roughly the same, but there are some things that are not up here that are now instead down here. In the About section, we have more of what you would expect from a project description. So in this case, they are showing that what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how do we know we're being successful. These are hard-coded, so you just need to fill them out and describe it, which is great because this is what you need to actually present for anyone who wonders what this project is about. The updates are identical, except you have this little timeline up here that is a little bit of an addition. Other than that, the updates are the same. The templates are roughly the same. And everything is basically the same here that you have. You have your learnings, same setup for this one. Risks are still not worth it here. Decisions still the same. So it's all the same when it comes to products. And you also have, in this case, you have contributors here, which are we did not have. And so contributors means who is actually working on this project. And then you have followers, and then you will have which of these goals is now related to it. What goals does it contribute to? And then you have other projects that it is now in relation to. And you have here now, remember in goals, we have it up here. You have your Jira links. This is now down here. So you have your Jira work here where you can actually connect all of that. And you have links, tags, and start date. And of course, if you create a custom field, they will also show up here. So they are pretty much the same, but it's just the Jira things that are moved here. And this sidebar is a little bit different. We also have the contributes to, which is actually here, and the project itself do not have any deliverables, which is kind of weird. It doesn't have phases, so it's missing a lot of things from a project management perspective. The following is exactly the same. Status updates are identical as well. You have exactly the same setup for it. And the same thing with archive. You have exactly the same setup for it here. So one more thing that we should show, or that I should show, but before I do that, why do I use a goal for project tracking instead of using the projects? Well, for me, it's very simple. A project does not have any deliverables. It's just a container for updates. This is basically a mailbox for me that I can now update my stakeholders in the projects with what is happening in the project. But it doesn't allow me to track anything. So the only way I can actually work with this one in a similar way that I do in goals is if I now create a new project, create a new sub-project for this one. Otherwise, I always have to go from the project to the goals. And if the goal is where I will actually have my deliverables, then what's the point of updating anything in the project here? Well, this is because you can have different stakeholders. So on project level, you can have the steering group, for example, and on the goal level, you can have different people that are interested in different deliverables, for example. That's why I'm using this setup for this one. Because I can now, for example, have, now it's a very big one, implementation of US service management. I could have, for example, a migration here or a certain data set, or I can have a configuration of a workflow, whatever it is that I have in my VBS that I actually want to track here. And I can have specific people that are following that one, and I can update this specifically. So I can actually close down my different deliverables through just one of the goals here. So that's why I prefer this better than the goals, because there's nothing really here for me to work with. This is just like a landing page for other people to find where do I go to actually get the useful stuff. So that's why I'm not using this one. There was one more thing I wanted to show you, and this one confused me a little bit. So when you're working with this one in your organization, you usually have a ton of goals for different reasons or for different purposes. And it can be a little bit tricky to filter them out and creating filters here. You want to have a quick view, basically. So up here, you can actually create a view. Now, there are already a bunch of views created here. Let's say I want to create one, a completely new one. My view, for example. My view, because it did not exist. And you'll see it would show up here. And at first I was like, well, if they all show up here, this is going to be a very long row. So I thought that just by creating it here, this one automatically was visible for everyone. That is not true. As you can see here, I have all of these and they do not show up on my bar here. So the way it works is this one, you only see the ones that you have starred. So if I remove this one and I refresh the page here now, then, like so. Then it will actually go away. And if I want to keep it here, I need to go to my view again, and I need to start it. And that is the way I can keep my view. Now you also have the option, maybe you quickly saw that one, I can set this as the default view. And this is means that when you come in here, you will not have the all goals view here anymore. You will actually have the default view that you set, which will then be my view. Which is great because I don't know how many times I've been in here and I was like, yeah, it's completely useless, filled with all these things I'm not interested in. And I just want to have this one. And now I can have this one filter on tag, for example, and I can have about me, for example. Doesn't exist. What else can we have? We can have on following, perhaps. Then it will be the same as the following, but you understand the gist of it. You can have your own filter. And this alone is great. But it becomes even better because if you go to status update here, it's there as well. So you can actually have it there as well as a filter for the status update. And this one you cannot set as default though, but at least it's Very good that you can customize your own view, and you don't have to clutter it for everyone else, because everyone else can now have their own view. So if I want, I can now have another one, and I can have two views, and I can split between them if I want. And both of them will show up now on status updates. And if you're looking at projects, you can have a similar setup for this one. And you will see that we will have exactly the same setup. So this is a very good way to filter out what you want and have a specific view for it, both in status updates and in directory. So that's what goals are. And like I said, we have goals in other places as well. So that is what goals are, and this is what projects are, at least today. We recently got an update just a few days ago, I think, that projects are now a standard field that you have in Jira, and we already have goals, so you can have it in plans, for example. So it's very easy to work with goals and with projects now. You also have goals tightly integrated with focus. For those of you who don't know what focus is, it is basically the strategic tool that Atlassian have come up with, and that is part of the strategy collection. I've done a few videos on that one before, but I'm going to deep dive a little bit more into that one, because goals in focus is a little bit different than what we're looking at here. So as you can probably see, or maybe you noticed that one, the icons for goals and projects that we have, especially goals that we have looked at, had a little gray icon, which means that it is a standard functionality in the platform, while the goals that we have in focus will probably be orange, the strategic orange color, because they are now tied to focus. It's also a little bit interesting. We had an update from Tanguy, the product owner from GR Discovery, who explained a little bit how they are looking at the relationship between goals, projects, GR Discovery, and Jira, for example. And I'm going to have a separate video for that one. But basically, what the idea is that goals is actually first. And so it's starting focus. You have a strategic goal of some sort. This one then becomes different ideas in your product discovery, and the ideas then become projects. And the projects then have tasks in Jira. Now, this does not work for me, because projects in product discovery, you cannot have projects in a product development. So the term project is wrong for that purpose, and I will explain why in the other video. But basically, when you have a fixed budget, you cannot have projects, because anything that happens within that budget is basically a focus area, or it is some kind of assignment that you have. But you cannot have a project, because projects are separate budgets, and they are usually investments. So unless they are claiming that everything that they do is an exception from the product budget, and that doesn't work for me. But we're going to explore that one. The other thing that I find is a little bit interesting is that goals and projects have been a little bit on the down low. So everything since focus actually started to get more functionality and goals became more integrated there, goals have seen more development. And we can see that in the views here, that the goals are a little bit more advanced than projects, which are basically just broadcasting tools, like I mentioned when I reviewed Atlas many years ago, and that is basically just a broadcasting tool. And I think projects is in a bad place at the moment, and I think it needs to actually get some more attention. I think it will be, well, I'm not going to spoil it. I will have it in another video, my thoughts on projects and what it should be instead, because projects does not make sense in the terms of having it as part of Jira, for example, as for product development or Jira product discovery, because you can't have projects in a fixed budget or fixed annual budget. Projects are investments always, and Atlassian have traditionally mixed those two terms. We recently got rid of the term projects for Jira Spaces, for example. So I think this one needs to be kicked in the groin as well, and he needs to have more functionality. Now, While I'm not using projects as much because it doesn't add much value for me, I use goals a lot, and I think that's a great way of using goals. I think it's very visual. I think it's very easy to keep people updated. It's easy to have discussions with different customers, for example. So goals is a favorite tool of mine, and I'm a little bit sad that it's underutilized. And I hope that by seeing this video and understand a little bit what goals and projects are, hopefully you will find them useful as well, because they're really good to connect work and deliverables, especially in project form. It's just that they are a little bit, you have to hack it a little bit, because goals are not supposed to be deliverables in that way. But you can use it, obviously, because I'm doing it. So I will show you later in another video also how I'm setting it up and how I'm connecting it to my VBS, for example. But this was all I had for this video. I hope that you found it useful and that you will start using goals and perhaps even projects. So until next time, I hope that you will have a great day and awesome week.